Mish, that was quick. That could be her. Hey, Nick. Hi, Nick. I love your picture, by the way. Phil, thanks, buddy. Phil, how are you, Phil? Russo, by the way, Nick Russo used to do radio with me back in the day, so we need to get some of those old radio sound checks that we had, Russo. So I'm going to try and find a way to, well, I'll go, I guess, I'll DM you after this, and we'll follow up. Hey, boss. Hey, buddy. Anyways, I know we have a newbie on Instagram coming on tonight, so I'm going to kind of speed into this a little. I'm pretty excited about tonight. I grew up in Montreal, watching Notre Dame football every Saturday. Every Sunday, Saturday night was watching the Habs, and every Sunday was watching the New York Giants play. And he already jumped on, and he's kind of a big man in the world of football, so I got to bring him on. I'm losing my intro, but I'll bring him back and I'll do it while he's on. So give me 10 seconds here. Every Sunday I watched the Giants play, and every Saturday was a Notre Dame game. I eventually actually took my dad and brother and a good buddy of mine, Lauren, to actually see. That's quick. That's quick. I thought I was going to go on and tell this big story.
No, I want to hear the intro, man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, so we spoke during the week, but it's one of those sports that I grew up playing every sport known to man. I wrestled, played badminton, was on the basketball team, on the soccer team, hockey. I played rugby. So I think my mind kind of gets how almost all sports work. But then when I talk to football people, it's so amazing that I don't really know anything when it comes to football. So that's why I'm pretty excited to have you on. Thanks a ton. Let me just give you a quick thing on Dan Saganey. Went to Colby with a good friend of ours, Michelle. Went to Colby, started coaching after Bentley, started coaching at this place called Harvard, from tight ends to O-line to tackles. He's coached everyone. From there, went on to the Cleveland Browns, got into the player personnel, and now he's actually the director of player personnel, scouting, evaluating, free agency, tracking. He does it all. So he's also new to Instagram, which is big. I mean, it's a big day for you.
I know. I joined Instagram just for this moment. So
I know. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. And I know I'm happy. We spoke prior to the Sunday game, so I don't want to bring up the Sunday game. So we're all positive vibes, and I see you're smiling already. Is that a brown sweater too? Are you actually wearing a team sweater?
it is. Got the hoodie on. Got the hoodie.
I like it. You grew up outside of Boston.
Yep.
Was it Celtics? Was it Bruins? Was
Yeah.
it
Right around the corner from Gillette. So I would go to a ton of games there when I was a kid with my dad. Back in those days, like, they were terrible. All the games were blacked out on television. So it was like you'd go watch in front of like 10,000 fans at the old Foxborough Stadium. And then, still big Bruins, Celtics, Red Sox. Still enjoy Boston sports quite a bit, but obviously all Browns. So.
Yeah. No, not now. But who did you want to be back then? So I grew up in Montreal. So there was, I wanted to be Matt Naslin, or I wanted to be Chris Chelios. And actually, funny, one of the things that I left out is that when I watched the Giants play all the time, every day after school, we'd normally play softball or baseball or whatever, hockey or football. When we played football, I always wanted to be LT. I always wanted to be Lawrence Taylor. That was
my favorite player growing up when I was a kid too. So it's funny, like I mentioned, the Pats used to be blacked out on TV, so it was the Giants games that were on half the time, and LT was my guy. So I got the framed picture signed by him breaking Joe Theismann's leg on the.
You're a little sick if that's. Did you actually get him to sign it, or did you buy it signed?
No, I found it signed. It was
okay.
Like my first post-college purchase right there.
I have a hard time when people come up with a picture of me punching someone from when I'm playing hockey, and they're like, they love to sign it, and I'm like
Bruins royalty here.
Yeah, I can't. I don't encourage the violent stuff, and people are like, hey, sign this picture of you punching this guy in the head, or vice versa. So,
like a stock crew T-shirt back in the day.
Yeah,
how many penalty minutes with the Bruins in those years?
I don't know. I was misused. I was really misused a lot, and some of it's coaching. So maybe through movies. Just as we last week, and we mentioned one movie we spoke last week, but I went through all my movies. We talked about sports movies, and I just love sports movies. I think there's so many lessons in sports movies. Check this list of football movies that I had in my basement. The Program, Invincible,
Yeah.
which Remember the Titans, We Are Marshall, The Blind Side, Draft Day, The Express, Rudy, Varsity Blues, Friday Night Lights, The Longest Yard, whatever.
Yeah.
Sunday, The Replacements. I just threw this one in there just for giggles, but The Water Boy.
Great movie. Great movie. Bobby Boucher. You can't beat the water.
Is there any of those close to reality?
Close to reality? I
Yeah.
know we were on draft day last week. Yeah, I kind of sat there and was a part of that when they were filming it in our facility, and went and sat on the set for a week, which was pretty cool just to see how everything's done behind the scenes and all that. But I mean, most of those movies are great stories and a lot of fun to watch, but not a ton of truth. I think like all the docuseries that have come out, I think are awesome because you do get a pretty realistic view, and you see, a lot of the narratives during training camp and all that, and what some people do behind the scenes, from the operations people to everything it takes to run a football organization. So there's a lot involved in it, as everybody knows. So
What about Any Given Sunday?
Good movie. Jim Brown.
No. There was Blind Side. Actually, there's a guy in the league, The Blind Side, Orr, right? Michael Orr.
Yep. They talk about that in that movie. There you go.
Do guys say anything to him on the field while anything's going on, or do they knock him? How bad's the smack talk in the game?
I mean, it sounds pretty similar to hockey. I think, there's a lot of respect for guys. Same thing going back and forth when you're, you see guys out there. We hear a lot of it during practice, and you get a lot during training camp. During the games, I'm not down on the sidelines, so I do miss that part of it that you don't get to see here. But,
Hold on.
Yeah.
You get it during practice?
Oh, yeah. During training camp? Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of guys get heated when you see the same guys every day for a month straight, so.
Is it encouraged?
I wouldn't say encouraged, but it's welcomed. Welcomed is a good way to put it.
So how would you welcome it?
Well, I mean, every team's a little bit different. Every team kind of takes on the personality of their side. And when you have guys that are, smack talkers, or guys that are really just high energy and competitive at practice, I think it rubs off on everybody. I think when your best players are like that, that's when you get some good stuff out there on the practice field.
What were you like as a player?
I was an offensive lineman, so I'd say I was slightly dirty.
I like that.
A little bit of an instigator, but nothing. You kind of turn. You'd always call it like you just leave your hand there. At the end of the play, you just kind of leave your hand there, just hold on for an extra second just to tick somebody off, see if they'll take a swing at you. Then you put your arm down before the ref flags you, and you walk away, and then you go on.
So, I like this. I want to give me some dirty. Give me some dirty football moves. Okay, I got you're bigger, you're stronger. You hold the guy for that extra second just to say, "'cause I can." That's kind of like. But what are some other? The poking in the eye, I'm sure was years ago, but is what's dirty today in today's football? There's so many camera angles that it's hard to do it.
I honestly, it's nothing like it used to be. It is hard. Right. Everything gets flagged and fined now. I think if you look 15 years ago, there was a lot of stuff that guys would get away with, and you hear all the stuff at the bottom of the pile. But now, like, that stuff's on social media in 2 seconds. Every camera in the stadium catches it, and we're sitting here talking about it on Instagram Live for a couple days after.
Look at you, huh? Look at Insta, huh?
Like that. Yeah.
Right. We're not going to go back to Sunday. Let's pretend from the game's over on. Let's go from the game. You have a week. What do you do? Do you guys look back on, even if it's a win or a loss, but it was a loss. Do you look back at what did we do wrong in that game? And do you look or is that game done? You start looking right away, which is Cincinnati, I believe, at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Do you
Yep.
start looking for that game already, or do you take some time to do both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, the morning is spent essentially grading the game, getting corrections made with the players, and, getting ready to introduce the next opponent. So it's really, we obviously lost a tough game Sunday, but you do flip your attention. Like, you don't have time in the week to dwell on that stuff. You got to come back and be positive in the afternoon and get on to Cincinnati. So for us, I'd say like majority of the buildings around the league, it's a pretty similar schedule where you're making corrections off the bat, trying to learn from the tape, win, lose, or draw, and then you immediately, our staff will meet with the coaches to go through the advanced scouting report, and that's when the next week's game plan starts. So it is like you have to turn the page very quickly, just because there's so much stuff to get done in a week, and sometimes you have roster moves to make, and you're trying to plan out your next game plan as quickly as possible. So,
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, what are the plants over your shoulder?
Oh, so this is my wife's home decor here. I believe she calls it. Heidi, what do you call the plants here?
If she says poison ivy,
modern, I believe.
Yeah, it's good.
My wife is upstairs painting the baby's closets while I'm down here talking on Instagram with you, by the way.
That's a smart man. See? That's a smart, yeah. And let me guess, you told her it's a 3-hour show, right? Yeah. One of the things about Instagram you're going to learn is you can see, actually my son just joined, but you can see people put stuff, they can say whatever they want. A question just popped up, and actually from a guy that I know, Scott Barrington. He asked, what kind of culture are you guys looking to build in Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're obviously trying to build a culture that wins consistently, and that comes through, earning respect every day on the field with everything we do, with actions on and off the field, and really just building a competitive, hard-nosed AFC North winning team. That's what we want to do. The goal is to win consistently, and we want players that we think can do that, have the right personal character, right football character, and are going to be ready to go and compete with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, and the rest of the National Football League.
So watching guys on Sunday, they brought up Baker Mayfield's ribs every 3 seconds of the game. So a couple things, like hockey, as you played, we're every second day. So, and I was always a kind of a 4th line plug, or 5th line, as you know. So there's really no days off.
Yeah.
So how do you, and I know practices have changed from when we were younger. It was full equipment almost every day, and now it's a lot less equipment for less amount of days because of the union. But how would I'm just saying him because it was talked about every second play. Every time he got bumped, how his ribs. But how would you guys go about the week, and B, how would he go about the week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think guys are all really about taking care of their bodies, and again, that comes back with the culture of, everybody's job is to be prepared to win on Sunday, and for players that's preparing mentally and preparing themselves physically, so that all goes. You play in the NHL for a long time, you know how it is to take care of your body. Sometimes practice has to be modified for certain players. That's just part of it. You only get a certain amount of padded practices, so it's really, once the season starts. So it really is even training camp, I would say, is way different than my first couple of years in the league before the new CBA, where you're having 2 padded practices the majority of camp, and it's, really becomes like a physical pounding, the guys got to endure to make it to the regular season. So, I think with the evolution of sports science the last 15 years, the new collective bargaining agreements and just, the emphasis on player safety that the league, has hit pretty heavily the last few years. I think all that stuff just adds up to help, save guys and get guys ready to go for Sundays, because that's the ultimate goal. So, you want your whole team practicing every day, every week. That would be great, but it's just not realistic. And,
so do you guys have to say on Sunday or every day I read the, here's your practice squad, but then you got to write everyone that's probable or questionable, or like
Mhm.
when I was in Boston, Tom Brady was, I forget the words, questionable or probable, every day for 12 years.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you have to write that down?
I don't know. I mean, if guys technically, like if guys have an injury or they're receiving treatment for something, it has to be documented. So
What level of an injury though? Like what level? Like a sprained ankle has to be talked about.
pretty much, yeah,
And is
yeah.
that for,
It's the system the league uses. So it's just to make sure there's the correct information going out. So
so
and guys got to take care of their bodies. So
so hypothetically, but just because I'm just using Baker because everyone talked about Baker. So hypothetically, Baker can't practice for a day, and you guys still want to run your plays. Um, Obviously, second steps in. You can only carry so many players. So this is
Mhm.
what I don't get about football. Like we have one player plays the one position.
Right.
You do have depth guys on the bench, but they sometimes play other positions.
Yeah.
How much like so? But the quarterback thing is the one thing in all of sports, which is probably the maybe a goalie in hockey I can probably compare it to. But the football, the quarterback, and they keep changing the rules almost to protect the stars of the league, and a lot of times they are the quarterbacks. Even though offensive linemen like yourself are beautiful, athletic people, but the quarterbacks they're trying their best to protect. So
Right.
how would you protect going into a game if hypothetically you again we'll just use Baker for the story or Tom Brady. Tom Brady's injured, but he's going to play, but there's a probability that he could get hurt.
Hmm.
How do you add a third quarterback to your team, or would you already have three? Like what per position?
Yeah. I mean, it's really up to each individual club how they construct the roster. I mean, this year with the COVID protocols, it realistically slows things down when you're trying to respond to injuries each week, and just the timing period to get players into the building is longer because we have to be safe with everything. So when you have an injury, it's something that you have to build your roster to absorb and to plan it out. That's what we do after games. That's what we do during the week. We work out players on a weekly basis so that we feel like we know who the next man up would be if they're outside the building. And then you've got to kind of pick and choose your ways to backfill your roster as the season goes and you have injuries that you have to overcome. So every team's in the same boat. It's all the same rules. Certainly it always feels like if you get hit at one position, it's like when it rains, it pours. But, typically I think we just try to be as prepared as we can with, again, that's part of what our department does is know that's available. Where's that player coming from? How do they fit our club? And what do we need to do to get them here? So
You ever take someone off the couch?
there's plenty of guys that come off the couch and end up playing well. So, I mean, in general, I feel like teams will do a good job working guys out during the course of a normal year. This year, again, there's definitely challenges with that. But it is something that that's why teams have personnel departments. It's to be prepared.
So yeah, so how do you go and scout a guy on another team? Like how do you have again? We'll use the Tom Brady because I don't want to do your team, but you have a guy that's injured. You need to find a depth guy. There's
Mhm.
no minors. How,
Right,
how do you how do you go? And it just happened on Sunday. And your
right.
guys played at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Uh, Hypothetically, Baker gets hurt. You got to get a guy by. You have a backup already.
Mhm.
Um, you need another one. How do you get one that quickly, and where do you find them?
Yeah. So I mean, it depends if it's a player that's going to be on your roster or your practice squad. So again, you have the option to promote a player from your practice squad. You can poach a player from another team's practice squad. If they choose to come to your active roster, or it can be a veteran that's on the street, waiting for an opportunity. So, or there's always the up until the deadline. So it's um, you see it every year. This year is very different for all of us with
Right,
all
right.
it's a tougher year in that regard. But we also have expanded practice squads this year, so you feel better about bringing up a guy that's been in your system and kind of knows what they're doing and can go, because you do have more guys available than we normally would. But yeah, again, that's our job. Like, our job is to know who the next best player is, who fits what we do the best, and then where's that player coming from. So, and here you have preseason tape. That's like a huge part of what we do is we scout them. Really the back 40 on every roster to know, again, who the next best corner is going to be, who are our top 5 corners if we have a player get hurt this week, or that's what we do. We study teams, we study players, and we try to be as prepared as we can.
How much tape do you think you watch a week?
Ooh, good question. These days, maybe not as much these days as in years past. But I mean, it's a good amount of stuff. We do a lot of individual tape watching, and then, all our processes are different. And, this year's different because for all of our college scouts, those guys are, hitting games. But, we're not allowed to go out and visit schools, other than to see, guys play in a stadium really right now. So, typically you're spending a lot of time out on the road at school, at colleges. Our pro scouts are at other teams' games, getting ready for who we're playing, and then we're all doing our tape work on the back end.
So I don't understand how I understand, but I don't understand, but I understand. But my point is, how is there not a minor leagues for football? Like how is there not like these guys that are on the practice squad? I get each team's allowed a certain amount of players, but how is the union or anyone? I mean, how do you look at the CFL? How about that?
Yeah, we do a big CFL study typically we do it in September and October, and then get ready to figure out who we want to try to bring in and sign in November and December. You can go, there's the CFL, the last couple of years, there's been the AAF League, which was 2 years ago, the XFL League last year. I think teams are trying, and there's players and agents that, want other opportunities. It's just, it's a bigger picture with the NFL and everybody else, to make it happen and make it stick. So it's got to be,
So you're involved with the draft now, because the whole college thing completely amazes me. Like, I probably one of my watching college, the bowl games. It's different today than it was here. Everything's different. Everything has changed and evolved and stuff. But I used to be on January 1 was always, we'd have our Thanksgiving dinner, and it was bowl game day. And like I said, I was a big Notre Dame fan. My dad and brother, my uncle. We'd sit down, my cousins, we'd all sit down on Jan 1 for New Year's, and we'd have and they were in a lot of the games back then. When Lou Holtz was coaching, they were in a lot of competitive games back in the day. So I'm looking at, this is like a couple ways to look at this. But first, let's start off, there's no minors. So your minors pretty much is you're drafting players out of college, because that's the only place you can draft them.
Right.
So a player has to go to college to be drafted.
Mm-hmm. For 3 years. For 3 years out of high school. Yep.
3 years out of high school. So how do you judge a player that plays? So I remember USC when they had, I'm going to say Rondell White and Reggie Bush. White was, like they touched the ball and they were, I mean, it was amazing. You could have been, is that the missus in the background? She comes to see the plants?
Yeah. What did you call the plants?
I love my plants.
She loves her plants.
They're beautiful plants.
Thank you.
How's the paint going?
I'd come say hi, but
Hi.
Pregnant.
8.5 months pregnant in the background.
No bra.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Dan's making you paint.
Exactly.
I don't trust him to do it.
Yeah, I just screw it up and get yelled at. So
the college thing. Like, how do you evaluate a player that plays on a powerhouse team versus
cool guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in general, like you're looking for traits that you think will play in the NFL. So, and there's, I think every organization grades players a little bit differently. I mean, in general, you're trying to find, what makes a guy produce in college, and can he produce and have it be sustainable in the NFL? Yeah, it's great to see guys play against the best competition. That's definitely like good confirmation. But college scouting is different than pro scouting, where it's a lot more projection and there's all different variables that you can really weigh in. You know, who teams play, if they had a good year one year, if they had but didn't have as good a year their senior year as their junior year, for example. Like, what were the factors that led to that? So there's a million different ways to look at it. In general, you want good football players. Every organization has their prototypes that they're looking for and a general, background and makeup of what we're looking for. And then, there are different touch points during the year. There's all-star games, which are huge for seeing the smaller school guys play against bigger school guys. There's the combine, there's pro days, there's all different ways to kind of catch guys that fall through the cracks now, and all the tape is so much more available and easier to sort and get through than it was, 15 years ago. So,
Do guys really go at it in the college all-star game?
yeah, you get some good competition from a lot of those guys. Yeah, and it's a good way to see who's competitive and who kind of goes on cruise control, and what guys that are from small schools, they know that's going to be their question, right? Like, how am I going to play against this guy from Notre Dame, from Florida? How's this going to look? So, guys come ready to play, and you get a chance to talk with them in those settings. Same thing at the combine. It's a chance to get to know what you're investing in with a player. So,
What do you guys? How much does a combine weigh? Like when you're drafting a player, is it like a guy that wows you? By the way, do you have a nephew?
I do. Yeah, Ryan. He should be on this thing.
Yeah, he's a superstar tennis player.
Oh, absolutely. He's a stud. He's got to teach me how to play. I don't know how to play tennis.
You're an offensive lineman. But what were you in basketball?
Play tennis. High school, I was like a forward center.
Okay, so you were always the big guy. The big.
Was the good.
Yeah. The big. Back when basketball was a little bit different than it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you ever give like the little elbow in the throat underneath, or?
No, there was. You can't get away with that on the basketball court. You couldn't get away with that.
Well, back then you can do anything.
Right. No.
I
don't like the elbow jump shot and rebounding and being there to foul the other team's best player, basically. So there was
Who's your favorite nephew?
That would be Ryan Geller. He's got to be on watch.
There's another one. I don't know. There's a couple there that were asking who's your favorite nephew. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. We got some down here.
So go back to the combine for a quick sec. I'll give you a story about back when I was at New York. I'm the first training camp. We were all put in these small groups. Long story short, the first day I was driving down to training camp, and I go to get to the border, and I get to the border. Day one of training camp, all the American Hockey League guys, draft picks, and young guys, they had to come in and do all their testing. Day two were the proven starters, the actual NHL Ranger team that was going to do their testing. So I go to the border on the Sunday. Let's say training camp starts on the Monday. I'm going to drive down to New York. As I'm driving, I get to the border, coming from Montreal, and I'm so excited. I'm driving down to go to training camp, and the guy's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to the Ranger training camp." He's like, "Oh, that's great news. That's great news." And I'm like, he's like, "You have your are you going to make it?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going to make it. Of course I'm not going to make it." He goes, "Oh, so if you don't make that team, where are you going to go?" And I'm like, "Well, they have an American League team in Hartford."
Yeah.
He's like, "Are you going to make that?" And I'm like, "No, I probably won't make that either." He's like, "Oh, so where are you going to play?" I said, "Well, the East Coast team is in Charlotte." He's like, "Oh, awesome. Let me see your working visa." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to turn home. Back then was different. It was not like a quick show of the phone. It was go back home, and they had to fax it. I didn't have the right papers. So I drive down a day later. So I had to wait for the fax to come in and all that. So by the time now I get to the training camp a day late. So now I'm put with the actual veterans. Like I'm with the team. I'm a kid. Everyone's in Ranger gear, and I'm in my Dollar des Ormeaux soccer short uniform. That's what I have on. And, I get put in the last group because I'm the extra, and I'm with this guy, Wayne Gretzky. So there's like 3 or 4 of us in a group, and they're all kind of like talking, and I'm just sitting there like this. not with wine, but let's just call it a water. But wine's better.
Yeah.
So I go to they're just doing the body fats and a couple other things, and then we
Yeah.
go over to the bench press test. And I think at the time it was 195, as many times as you can do it. And I'm really nervous. I get down and I think I did about 14 times. And I was so like the lactic acid that builds up in your chest and you're so nervous. And Wayne's sitting right beside and he's like, "Oh, kid, that's good. Good job, kid." So I get up and he like taps me on the leg and like I can't breathe. I'm so nervous. It's the first time he's talked to me. And he goes, "Wow, that was awesome. Do you mind doing mine?" So I don't know what to say because it's Wayne Gretzky and I don't know how these things work.
Right.
So I go back down on the bench and like I'm so nervous right now. I'm sweating. I can't feel my arms. My chest are like this. I feel like a T-Rex. And he goes, I go to pull the weight down, like thugs to me. And he goes, "I'm joking, kid." He looks over at the guy, goes, "Write me down for 3." So that was Gretz's bench press test. So that's kind of superstars are in a different world than the 4th, 5th liners. You guys have the 225 bench press test.
Yeah, at the combine, yep. In
Yeah.
the spring.
Yeah. So how much weight does that actually, like, if a guy benches at 15 or 25, do bells go off? Do bells not go off? And more importantly, how much did you bench?
Not a lot. I'm four shoulder surgeries deep, so my I
That's because
got
you
back.
held on too long.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Somebody finally chopped my arm down and pulled the thing out. So, no, like I would say it's different. It's different by position. Like realistically, all the tests, whether corners, you value certain agility drills far more than you would, an offensive lineman, for example. So, or the bench press. Really, it's more. I would say it's more of like a red flag when guys have a really slow time here or there, or a low bench number. But I mean, you look for football players first. All that stuff is there so that it's standardized data you can study, see where guys fit in historically. Are there any red flags? And really, like part of the bench press stuff is like you want to see guys compete and fire
Any
it up.
smack talking?
What's that?
Any smack talking at the bench press?
No, like it's fun when you watch it at the I always think it's a fun one to go watch the O-line and D-line and some of the skill, like some of the running backs, some of the linebackers, all those guys do that at the combine because those guys, you see guys' personalities a little bit when they're cheering guys on too. It's always fun to watch. And some guys, get pretty amped up for it and, they know they're good at it. So they're ready to roll and it's impressive to watch. But yeah, I mean, it really is like a standardized thing. The combine and, pro days in the spring, a lot of it, you're more curious to see guys work out and do some of the drills in person because a lot of the time, you feel like a guy from studying him on tape for the last 3 years, if you're an area scout, but you haven't seen him, you may have seen him in a game with, 21 other players around him, but you're really curious how he's going to do in some of the drills and some of the standardized work. So that's
How much is it? So percentage wise, skill versus person? Like some people, like over here.
Yeah.
Again, I'm Instagram for you.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. I mean, I think it's equally as important. I mean, there's a lot of good football players, but finding the right people to fit your organization and your culture. You had the question earlier from somebody about what kind of culture we're building.
Yeah.
Like people for that's going to be critically important. So it's so hard. I mean, you played professional sports, you know how hard it is to get to that point, and to stay there is just as hard. I always like try to talk with rookies that come in or even just like guys we work out during the fall, and you start to get to know players a little bit. And, you see all these guys that come in through your building and you talk to at all-star games. And, every now and then they'll ask like, "Hey, do you have any advice for me?" or any of that. And it's like, hey man, you got to use every resource you have to stay available because it's hard to stick in the National Football League. Is a hard business, just like the NHL. I mean, it's hard to stick. And
it was hard, but good thing you just brought this up. It would have been easier. Kelly Rudy was a goalie back in the 60s. I played against Kelly, actually. Kelly, I can't say 60s because that would make myself look old. But Kelly's the guy I did TV with who actually I scored my
Yeah.
first goal on, who's on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada, just jumped on. So, hi, Rudes. Hi, buddy. I scored my first goal on him. It would have been, I would have scored a lot more if Rudes would have played longer, but he retired the following season. So you just brought something up. Like, there's so many different people, right? And you're trying to find the right person to fit
Yep.
the mix. I think
Mhm.
that was really, again, I go back through movies. What are you drinking?
Just got my water, man. Just got my water. I know you got your wine.
No, it's.
Grape juice.
Do you guys have days where you can drink or can't drink?
But just water now.
So you have guys that come from, again, I love the game of football. I think I know a ton about football, but then I hear you talk and I just sound, in my head, it's spinning like all this stuff that's happening all week. And I'm trying to think, I just watched a play and thinking the guy should have had it. He should have been there. But
Yeah.
there's so much that go into it. And it's great to be an armchair quarterback on Monday mornings, or even while the plays are going on. But there is so much that actually go into it. And one of the things is, the personalities and so many different people. And how do you, the movie for me was The Program. Just, we're going back a little bit for people that are watching The Program, which was, again, an amazing movie, but just the different coaches in different positions, but the different personalities in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have, so I played with Wayne Gretzky, which was up there. And then there was, I don't know how low my hand can go on Instagram, but then there was, am I still on the screen? But then there was PJ Stock, and he was way down there a little bit. You have guys like Odell Beckham, who's like a world celebrity. Like, how is it? Because it's a different world. The salaries are a different world. How is that? How hard is that in that type of sport where there is that much of a gap? In hockey, we didn't really have the bigger gap from salaries to lifestyles to everything. In football, you do. So how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think it's number one, having leadership.
That's three.
Yeah, you got a few good ones.
You said great.
Great.
I'm going to make clips of this.
No, I mean, I honestly think it comes down to having great player leadership, and then great leadership from the top down in the organization. So every locker room's different, and the ebbs and flows of a football season are just like this. So I mean, there's you go from winning 4 in a row like we did to losing like we did last week. Now it's our job to get back up. So in order to do that, and when you're managing people and personalities, it's just like any other locker room. That dynamic is extremely important, and I think it's most important for players to police it themselves. I mean, it's a player-driven league, and you have to have good leadership from your coaching staff, and we're fortunate that I think we have an unbelievable staff where we are now. So you see different players respond to adversity different ways, and it's up to the player leadership to pull it in the right direction, really. So and it's fun when you win, but I also think you learn a lot about people when you lose and how guys respond and pick each other up and what the attitude is going forward. So
You ever beat up a teammate after a loss?
no, man, no. I'm trying to think. Yeah. No, we had some pretty good locker rooms at Colby College and Bishop Feion High School in Attleboro. So, where did you live when you played for the Bruins, by the way?
I was in North Andover.
Okay, you were way up there.
Yeah.
I guess.
We practiced in Middleton.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You guys were up there.
A lot of guys were up there, and I don't know how I don't know. It was awesome, but it was I've had a couple of, and I don't know. I'm thinking, and sometimes after a loss, and that's the thing with, we don't really. You guys, the games are so valuable for us. It's like it's 82 games. We lose on a Tuesday night. We play the next night or 2 nights later, and there's a little bit. I think it's different today, but some stronger teams and weaker teams than we played. Today, a little bit more parity in all the sports leagues with some of the caps that are going on. But once you lose 2 or 3 in a row, then things would start to heat up. And then, we have a stick in our hands. So in practice, you slash a guy a little harder, and we'd have
Yeah.
a couple of fights in practice. I got my kid. We're doing a power. Well, it was in the American Hockey League, so we're doing a power play drill, and it's one of those things where he's the guy's killing the penalties are in front of the net, and my buddy Dale Purington, who we're buddies, is killing, but he wants to kill it so bad. I find that, like, teams like on the defense, or but you're not O-line, you can argue this, that are trying to shut things down. I think we amp it up more than some of the guys that are trying to beat us, and that's kind of, I don't know. When I was penalty killing, I probably tried harder than when I don't know. I can't say if I ever did, but it just always seems that way. And Dale got his stick up because his blade was up, because they're almost like they're using it as a cane to kill the penalty. So he cuts me under the eye, and I turn around and I take my stick and I slash him pretty much over the chest. And I tell him, Dale, that wasn't a nice play. And then Dale more or less takes his stick and slashes me back and says, PJ, I didn't like that remark. And then, anyways, we ended up getting into our goalies jump on us. The two of us are just punching. We go in the locker room and we're both sitting there now icing ourselves up. And the guys come by and they're like giving you taps. Like, way to go, guys. That was great. And like, what people outside of our world just don't like.
Yeah.
Imagine having a bad sales meeting and you meet Robert in the hallway and you just decide to clothesline him and be like, as for your stupid presentation.
Right. Yeah. No, it's I mean, for us, like, I think you see a lot of that during training camp with players. There's this, same thing in college football. Like, in the regular season, I think guys are so focused on what they're doing, and the tempo is way different too. I mean, I don't know how in-season practices are in the NHL, but for us, the tempo is significantly different. So
they slowed down a ton. Now it's slowed down a ton. It's almost, there's the PAs put in where you only practice so many days a week, so many days a month. Yeah,
right.
It's which we get. And so this is going to be a Boston question. So anyone from Cleveland, don't listen to this for a quick second. It's just a Boston question because we both grew up in Boston, and I mentioned Tom Brady before about being injured every day of his entire career. But what's it kind of like coaching against a player that you kind of grew up, because he's played for so long, I guess, liking or idolizing, to now coaching against them because you're still super young. So you've seen that curve and you lived down the stadium from them, and now you're coaching against them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny studying those guys and seeing Brady still play. Guys like, number one, you just respect them, to do what they're doing at such a high level for so long. Even like, guys that were good players when I first came into the league that are still playing. Like, I've been in that 12 years now, and, watching guys that were already, the Phillip Rivers of the world, the Aaron Rodgers of the world, those guys that are still doing it.
So well too.
Offensive linemen that play for like 15 years, that like boggles my mind. I mean, it's funny because you study them just like any other opponent, but there's you also kind of know the history and track record of the players. So it's cool to see that for guys like Peyton Manning and Brady to do what they do for so long it's a hard sport. So
you just completely dodged that question. You did not did you? You completely just went, I want it to be like, what's it like to coach? He's like, yeah, it's good. They're all good. I'm like, it is kind of funny. You can't. You're being so like, I can't. I just got to compliment them all. You should have coming up some flaws. I saw that Tom Brady changed the way he's standing this year. He's trying to be in a more athletic stance, they're calling it. It was on the game. I think they played the Packers on Monday night, and I just how it is amazing. It's the best sport to watch on television. It is awesome, and hearing how you guys break down a play is pretty amazing. Like from his stance to, and the guys that do it they're amazing. Do you have a favorite team that calls NFL games?
Ooh, good question. I don't think I do really.
It's not great, but that's a good.
No,
so
that's a good question.
We got 3-1 right now.
All right, not bad. I'm trying to think. I mean, no, I think all the national crews are all really good, and certain guys get more notoriety than others, whatever. But I think majority of them do a really good job. So,
what do you think about when you?
Brady stance thing, watching him for so long in New England when he was in the AFC and then growing up, and it was like the first thing you noticed when I turned on Tampa tape a couple weeks ago was change the stance. So
Change your
yeah,
stance.
certain different things. For us, like, we study tendencies and tips and all that stuff to try to help our staff out when you're in charge of, the advanced report for a team. So you see different differences with players year to years. And, when you really study teams and, really study the players as opposed to the big picture stuff, you do see a lot of things that change over the course of years. Or I always find it interesting how guys will have bounce back years too. Like a guy may, be a good player for 4 years, have one down year where maybe it was an injury, maybe it was a scheme or usage thing like you talked about earlier. Or,
I like the way you giggle as you say it. You're like,
what?
You're all sneaky. Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff is like, that's part of the fun of what we do. That's why I love what I do, and it's so fun to, I get to watch football for a living. There's nothing better than that. So, and it's different. You're not watching it, like I was watching Tom Brady growing up, but you're watching it from how do I beat this team perspective. So it's, or what can I do to help our team beat this team? Really, it's such a big group of people that has to come together to win an NFL game. So, and like you said, it's only it's 16 of them. It's not, you're not playing Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So
yeah. The importance is
that's why Mondays are important. So
you used the term advanced settings before. Studying advanced studying. The reason why I want to ask this because you have a big game coming up on Sunday at 1:00.
We do.
How much am I betting on the Browns?
I will not comment that based on the.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
That sport, it is amazing how it's a betting machine. Like all my buddies, when I was in Boston, I got with a bunch of buddies, everyone bet. It's like, you can't watch a football game without like betting $10, 50, even if you're betting beers, you're betting rounds, you're like,
yeah.
The Super Bowl is I found a way to make it. I hate seeing anyone lose $1, so I hate seeing that whatsoever. But I understand how it all works. But even the coin toss, like there's just.
You bet the toss. Do you do all that stuff?
Yeah, well, we do. Like, that's the biggest scam ever. The length of the national anthem. It's
right.
Just anyways, I know. I know you don't get to see the wife much, and I know you guys. She's 8.5 months pregnant, and I know she's a plant savant and has a couple of beautiful ones behind.
Mid-century, century modern.
Yeah, it's and you got the sweater on, so I know you got a big week coming up. You don't get to see the family a ton, and I know you took some time out to do this, and you joined Instagram. So
watch all the other ones here. So
yeah, and now you get to. I know that your nephew's an amazing tennis player, so he's coming up.
And that I saw my sister-in-law asked who my favorite nephew was on here. So
that's who it was. Yeah. And you already answered it. So, anyways, thanks a ton for you to do this.
What's up?
Thanks for doing this. Thanks to your family for letting you do this, and get some water in those plants.
Yes, I will. Man. We'll be in touch. Let me know if you're ever in Cleveland. So
big win.
Yes.
Big win Sunday.
All right,
awesome.
man.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks for doing this. Cheers, bud.